What's going on, Spurs fans? My name is Tom Petrini, and this is the Big Fundamental Podcast, the official Ken's 5 podcast on the San Antonio Spurs. And this is, by the way, the official TV station of the San Antonio Spurs. I am joined by one of my colleagues and good friends, Jeff Garcia, and we've got some good Spurs basketball to talk about. The broken record of the beginning of the season has maybe been broken a little bit, in that the wins are finally starting to come for this team. So, Jeff, 4-game win streak, longest in the last 2+ seasons. What did you see from that really 5-game stretch where they wound up playing the Suns really well?
Did you have on your bingo card this year a 4-game win streak? Because I didn't. I did not have that on my bingo card for this team at all.
I didn't have it this early.
No.
I thought they were going to figure some things out, you know? Like, I thought that this team was going to be better in the second half of the season because that's what happens when you have a new team with new pieces and new roles for everybody. Yeah. But, no, I didn't think that it was going to happen this quick. And, you know, when we were doing the work on it, it was like, oh, like I was looking to see when the last one was, and I had to look back to it was like March of 2019 when they won 9 in a row, and unsurprisingly, DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge leading scorers for all 9 of those games. So
what happens when you have an all-star? Huh? See what happens when you have all-stars?
True. Yeah. But hey, they had those all-stars for the past 2 seasons too. And, you know, no 4-game win streaks to show for it. So, in your view, what were some of the things that the Spurs did to kind of turn the tide and finally turn some of those close, hard-fought games into wins that they closed out?
You're starting to see a little chemistry. I think that's what you're starting to see. Remember early in the season, Tom, what was the buzzword you heard the most? Communicating. We're not talking. You know, we're getting there. Our communication's got to be better. We got to clean things up.
Too many mistakes.
That changed. Too many mistakes. That changed in that 4-game win streak. And you saw them starting to get familiar with one another. Popovich kept on saying, the worm is going to turn. The worm is going to turn. Give it time. Give it time. Bryn Forbes, I don't know if you caught this, Tom, and I'm pretty sure you did. Every time he came on post-game after a loss, it was like nothing happened. It was like, yeah, we lost, but we're going to get there. That just shows you that you have a veteran player who saw it. You got Popovich, who's been there, done that. He's a coach. He's a teacher. He's a mentor. He knew that was going to happen. And lo and behold, it finally clicked. Now, will they have another 4-game win streak? Maybe more. Hopefully. They are definitely on the right path. But as we're seeing the last 2 games, you know, there's still some growing to do. How to play off a back-to-back, it's a game of a back-to-back. You know, that's a lesson right there for them to learn. How to sustain momentum is something they have to learn. But all in all, Tom, if you're looking for developmental positive signs, you just got it right now.
Yeah, it's been really fun to watch this team sort of figure some things out. I think the biggest thing, you know, because they were in a lot of these games, right? For, you know, going through their losses this season, plenty of them, they were right there. And just down the stretch, it was the other team's stars that took the game into their hands and, you know, figured out how to make winning plays in crunch time. And, you know, DeJounte has been nails late for this team. But also, I think we need to talk about the resurgence of Derek White, who, you know, I don't think it's any coincidence that he starts putting up 20, 25-point games, Spurs start winning them. He's always been a very good complementary piece next to DeJounte Murray. Like, the two in the backcourt do different things well that bring out the strengths of the other. Menacing defensively. And Derek is another guy who you can trust in pick-and-roll situations. And look at that. We've got our man Joe Reinagel here. We're gonna set him up. You got your headphones?
I got these.
All right, hey. Plug them in here.
Oh.
So you can hear our man Jeff. We're gonna do some movie magic
Jeff.
here.
What's going on, Joe?
All right, I'm walking around here.
That's just me. We'll figure it out. Still working on it. Nowhere near as bad as it was 2 days ago. And I'm glad that Joe is laughing because it was not the best that I did 2 days ago.
It was a great conversation, though.
Oh, yeah. If you guys want to see the first video-only podcast, I'll have a blooper reel in the end of this one. And hey, there he is.
Boom! Look at
Hey,
that.
wow, I can hear everybody.
We're figuring it out, guys, just like the Spurs. It'll be smoother moving forward. That's just
Absolutely.
what we're talking about, Joe, this 5-game win streak. What did you see? What jumped out to you?
Oh, wow. Well, the thing that jumped out at me was the way the guys are finally, I think, learning how to play together. In the beginning, as we all saw, it was just, effort, hustle, everything was there. They just couldn't get over the hump. And that was the problem. They just didn't know how to win. And I think during that win streak, they finally started to figure some things out where they know what to do now. They know how to put their foot on somebody and say, we're going to take this game. And it's just the little mistakes that they were making. They're not making those mistakes anymore, and I think that was the biggest thing. And I think moving forward, we're going to see more of that. And obviously, the last 2 games haven't been what they wanted, but I really believe, again, this whole season's a learning experience. But I think we're starting to see some success in that learning process.
Yeah, and unfortunately for this team, a bunch of injuries, a cascade of them, seem to come one after the other. Just as one guy gets back into the starting lineup, somebody else is out. The guy that's out right now is Keldon Johnson. Devin Vassell, though, probable, so that's a positive sign.
That's good.
I'll start with you, Joe. Who do you think is going to, A, step into the starting lineup and fill that hole that Keldon is leaving? And, who are some other guys who you think could see their minutes or roles increase?
Yeah, I know you guys are going to laugh, but I think it is an opportunity for my guy Bryn Forbes to continue to do what he's been doing, and step up and be the guy that I thought he could be. Not necessarily the all-star, but certainly the guy that can come in and add a spark.
As a professional courtesy, I was never going to bring it up again. You're doing. This
I understand. I appreciate that.
I was waiting for the write-in candidate, and then I said, "That's Joe. That's Joe's candidate right there." And the all-star ballot. Bryn Forbes.
We'll say this about Bryn Forbes, though. Last 3 games, he's been fantastic in the role that the Spurs need him to play, which is come off the bench and hit shots. And he's been breaking ankles and talking smack. So
and Joe, if it's any consolation, I did give him a little bit of his props earlier. I did say when they were having their losing ways, if you notice, every time he was in his post-game press conferences, he spoke. He was calm, cool, collected. Even though they were getting drubbed by 20 or more sometimes, he was like, hey, it's going to happen. We're going to be all right. He was a very calming factor. I think he was showing that value and bringing it back.
A calming factor in the locker room, too, because and in the games, because, in the Warriors game, in the Suns game, and even against the Knicks, he didn't really play in the first half of those games.
Right.
And in the Warriors game and the Suns game especially, the Spurs were getting to a point where it was like, we need to manufacture buckets somewhere. We need to get somebody to put the ball in the hole. And it was Bruno from Pounding the Rock said very correctly, when you have Bryn Forbes on the floor, you have at least one guy who knows exactly what his job is. and he's executing it. So to see him, playing in that limited role, but really providing a spark. We're seeing the concentration of Bryn Forbes, right? And that was always my problem when he was here and in the starting lineup, was he was overextended, right? Because he's still not going to clamp anybody up. Defense has been better this year, a little bit, but he's still Bryn Forbes on defense. So, if the Spurs do go like really small with a 4-guard set, I don't think Bryn will be that 4th guard. I would think about bringing a guy like Devin Vassell into the starting lineup just because he's got tremendous length, so he can play up a position, basically, and he brings shooting that this team needs. So, and honestly, he's been, in my opinion, the 3rd best and most consistent Spur this year behind DeJounte Murray and Jakob Poeltl. So, we might see more time for him.
I think Trey Jones too. I mean, right? Trey Jones has gotten some minutes, and I think he could be important because I don't think Keldon's coming back anytime soon. I mean, that looked pretty bad. I hope I'm wrong, but I think we're talking multiple games here.
There
realistically,
was no structural damage,
right.
but you saw him roll that ankle, come out, and from where I was sitting. I was watching the second half shoot around, and I looked around and I don't see Keldon out there, and he comes out of the tunnel and walks up to Pop, and like a lot of this and a lot of Pop going like, "You sure?" and him being like, "Yeah, I want to go in there," and you would expect nothing less from the kid.
Another guy I would expect to see spiky minutes is Keita Bates-Diop.
Yeah,
I think he's really going to get his chance to shine. When he has gotten some minutes, he's really proving some value on that court on both ends of the floor.
He's a very, in my opinion, he's a low risk, low reward play in this rotation because he's going to be solid, even great defensively. And we saw, in that Knicks loss, I mean, second game of back-to-back, and the Knicks are just hitting everything. If Julius Randle is raining step-backs on you and R.J. Barrett hits 7 of 9 from deep,
right?
It doesn't really matter what else happens in the game. You're probably going to lose. But, Keita Bates-Diop, to me, the question has always been, like, is he going to I'm never looking for him to impose himself on offense, but I am looking for that confidence and, especially when he goes up with it. He moves confidently and well, and he gets to spots, he sets good screens, he does things that help this team. But and maybe it's just, maybe it's just me, but every time he goes up for a shot, like, I'm not confident, and I'm not sure he's confident. But, like, so playing him in the starting lineup, I'm not sure about. But if you're looking at positionally, what the Spurs are trying to make up for, rebounding was rough in that Knicks loss. And a guy like Keita Bates-Diop who brings the defense and rebounding, we're definitely going to see him play more.
Well, that's exactly what's been going on with the Spurs in this 2-game losing streak. They're getting out-rebounded. That's one of the big factors right now. They got out-rebounded versus the Suns, and they got out-rebounded versus the Knicks. Yeah. So, here's a guy who can hopefully address that.
Yeah. Well, if Vassell is healthy, obviously he's the guy. I mean, right? I mean, he's got to step in, and he's got to be that guy. So they're going to rely on him, and that's a big question. I think if he is probable, obviously they feel well enough that he probably will play tonight. But how much? But I think to replace a guy like Keldon Johnson and the things that he does, I think you're going to need more than one guy. Although I think Vassell can be that guy, but I think until he gets 100% healthy, you're going to need the other guys we've been talking about. Forbes, Trey Jones, Keita Bates-Diop. I mean, you're going to need all of those guys, I think, playing a key role and some clutch minutes when they get their opportunity.
And some Austinites who
that could be,
There were some roster moves and non-roster moves that raised some eyebrows yesterday. Jock Landale going up to Austin. Josh Primo not. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, why aren't you playing Jock Landale more?" And listen, I get it. I get the frustration with Drew Eubanks. I get wanting to see more of Jock Landale out there. But this is the best way to see that because he's an NBA rookie. He's 20 games into his NBA career with this new team. Had a concussion and got COVID. He hasn't had the time to really get into NBA playing shape, and that's I mean we're seeing teams around the league use that for star players.
You're right. Hey, pretend to be shocked. A Spurs rookie going to Austin to the Austin Spurs program. I mean, seriously, why is everybody shocked right now? This is just no par for the course. Ask DeJounte, ask Lonnie, ask Derek, ask Danny, ask Boban, ask out everybody who's been in the league with the Spurs. This is just the path.
And it seems to me like it's even more of like a rehab stint that because I firmly believe that he would have been playing more in the early going of the season if not for those injuries and things. So I think that he's going to work his way into shape. And we saw in garbage time against the Knicks, he comes in, screens, rolls, makes a little fake pass and lefty hook, screens, pops, hits a three. He's got talent that can help this team. as a complementary big man with, I think it's fair to say, a much deeper scoring arsenal than Drew Eubanks has. And so definitely looking forward to him hopefully getting healthy and being able to, get his legs under him and then finally, show what he can do at the NBA level. Hopefully for him before Zach Collins gets into playing shape, because that's, it's a position of need right now for the Spurs at big man. But they've got reinforcements coming. So, and yeah, Josh Primo staying. And we got to talk about this kid in the Suns game, man. He played 18 minutes, 4 blocks and 3 steals. Like, that's something.
Awesome.
That's crazy.
Well, here's the thing. If you want to know everything about Josh Primo, just go to kens5.com/Spurs right now. You want to know who inspired him? There's an article I did with him, and I've had multiple one-on-one interviews with him. Yeah. He's talked to me about what he wants to do in the NBA as far as being bigger than just a three-point shooter. Who inspired him to become the shooter? Who is his NBA legend that he looks up to, and so much more. But Joe, I was talking to I was talking to the Austin Spurs head coach recently, and he said we're doing the Zoom there, Joe, and he looks at me and he goes, "You know what, Jeff? I'll tell you something right now. There's not one practice, one game, one day where this kid Primo does not surprise me. He just says he is just surprised everything." Something new that he presents on the court, Joe, and I was just sitting there loving it.
Yeah, and obviously the kid's got all the skills. There's no question about it. But, Tom and I were talking about this the other day. He's still just 18 years old, right? I mean, he's 18 years old. And I think, I don't know, maybe that's hard for Pop to get over. Maybe it's hard for me to get over. It's just us old guys, right? We can't comprehend an 18-year-old guy coming in to the NBA and being a star. However, I think the best place for him, and Pop said as much the other day in his pregame comments, he belongs in Austin. He belongs there. He needs to get more time. He needs to get seasoned. Absolutely. Obviously, they have a need now with Keldon Johnson, so maybe that's why Primo sticks around and he gets his opportunity. And maybe he proves me and Pop wrong, and he sticks around and becomes a star that nobody is expecting right now, except for all you crazy Spurs fans out there that think he's the next Michael Jordan. I mean, I
don't think anybody said that. I think they all said Kobe Bryant.
Oh,
right?
Kobe Bryant. Okay.
Kobe Bryant, Kobe Bryant, yeah. Well, here's the thing. He got those 4 blocks. Was it against Phoenix, right, Tom? Phoenix. But he already did that. He already did that in Austin. He had a game where his offense was just horrible for at least a good 3 quarters. But he contributed on the defensive end with 4 blocks at the G League level. I get it. With rebounding, with steals. And one of the best interactions I had with him, Tom, was he had this phenomenal game for the Austin Spurs. Phenomenal. Just shouldered the team to a win. He talks to me. He goes, Jeff, before you start, I got to say something. I apologize to my teammates right now for having a poor first half. I am sorry. That'll never happen again. I mean, to me, he just loves basketball. And when he's not playing well, it really gets to him. And I like that. That's big for an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, he's shown a lot of maturity, a lot of leadership qualities already. And 2 very different players, but Keldon Johnson and Josh Primo are the same height. Primo might wind up being taller than him.
And his agent told me that his bones,
his growth plate,
are not fused yet. They're not fused yet. Yeah. They're still open. So
he's 18 years old, for goodness sake.
18 years old. I mean, we can say this for a couple more weeks. Josh Primo is 18 years old. The 18-year-old is 18.
He may be 7'2" by the time he's 20. I mean, who knows? This kid's still got some growing to do.
I wish my bones didn't fuse at 11 years old. I tell you that much.
He's got a ton of potential and long arms, big hands, and activity. That was the thing that stuck out to me, was the activity, because, you talk about impressive enough at the G League level, but you're talking about a guy helping out on Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton in pick and roll.
Right.
That is about as nasty a pick and roll as there is in the NBA today. And we saw Chris Paul do his thing, get a bunch of switches, get a bunch of shots. But when they tried to take advantage of those switches that Ayton had down low, they couldn't get clean passes to him in the post, in the paint. And Primo was a huge part of that. So
he's fearless. I don't think there's any question that he's fearless. He's not afraid of any situation.
I think it says a lot that he's not going back to Austin this time. We knew that this point would come in the season, but maybe it's the injuries, although there have been injuries throughout. So this might be him. And we all know the way you earn playing time in Greg Popovich's rotation. What is it, Joe? Play defense.
Play defense.
Right?
You have to play defense, right?
Yeah. You got to do it.
I have to believe it's the injuries, and the only reason I say that is because of what Pop said just 2 days ago.
Yeah.
That Primo belongs in Austin. He needs more time there. So I just can't imagine that Pop had a dream last night and said all of a sudden, well, Primo's arrived and he's here, and I don't feel that way anymore. So it has to be the injuries, and I have to believe that he's still going to go back to Austin and spend some time there before it's all said and done.
Well, the good news is that the G League season is a lot shorter than the NBA season. Right. So eventually they'll have to come back and do his thing with San Antonio. Who knows? Maybe he rides the pine, for a good chunk of the remainder of the NBA season. But regardless, it's good to see him in a San Antonio uniform. Every single minute counts for this kid. I don't care if it's 2 minutes on that floor. Get him out there. But all in all, the big upside. He still has a lot of growing to do. I think R.J. Barrett abused him quite a bit against the Knicks. Hey, that just comes with the territory. But so far, still good. And you want that out of a draft lottery pick. What was he, Joe? Number 11, I think he was, right? Number 11?
Yeah, was it? What was it?
Yes, 11 or 12.
Wow.
I think it was
testing
11.
my memory.
Regardless,
Yeah, 11.
Yeah, 11. So, you want that. And it just look, circumstances. You mentioned it right now, Joe. Circumstances in this situation is the injury bug, which is allowing Primo to stay. Last season, it was just needing bodies because of the COVID situation. Vassell stayed on, and they didn't send him to the G League. They sent Trey Jones. So it's almost like you need some big force of nature to get Pop to keep these young guys on the San Antonio bench. But, hey, if you're Primo, you take it.
Absolutely.
Jeff, I know you got to get going here in a sec, but I got a bone to pick with you.
Uh-oh.
Put something silly on the internet.
Hit me with it.
I'm warning everybody.
What, that
stay away from the trade.
The coolest guy ever?
No. I'm warning everybody to stay away from the trade machine because, man, it's getting silly out there.
Oh, those fans are funny.
I love Spurs Twitter. Born in it, molded by it. But, I mean, guys, you can't be going out and roasting every awful trade for DeJounte Murray and then being like, all right, how about Thad Young, Drew Eubanks, Lonnie going into free agency for Domantas Sabonis. It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Never going to happen. You're making us look silly. But what the Sabonis thing is interesting. The Pacers situation is interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
And they do have a couple of players who would look nice on this current Spurs roster. The question is, how do you get them over here without giving up too much? And I don't think that there is a satisfactory answer at this juncture. And part of that is because the Pacers and the Spurs are at kind of similar, the Pacers are a little overcooked right now. But in terms of the assets and, the goals of these organizations, it's going to be tough to find a deal that works for both parties. So realistically, Jeff, what do you think there's anything here? Because the Spurs names have been mentioned. In the Athletic story the other day, they were talking about this could be a fit, but I think that suggested trade involved Derek White, Keldon Johnson, Primo, and picks. Yeah. So different than the other one.
Yeah. And you know what? Of other Pacers players that are reportedly on the market. It's not Sabonis. It's actually Miles Turner is the guy that I would want.
LeVert is on the block too, there, right?
Yeah, so. LeVert is on the block. Yeah, I mean, as much as Sabonis is an all-star. I think he's an all-star.
2 times.
I actually would go with Turner. I think Turner would be the guy if I'm the San Antonio, if I'm Brian Wright on the phone with Indiana saying what we can do. But here's the thing, Spurs fans: if it's going to take money to get money, you're going to have to give up something. That be it Derek White. Pick, a Primo. if you want to get these kind of heavy hitters into San Antonio. So, look, the Spurs have done it before. George Hill, Kawhi Leonard, y'all remember that. So if the Spurs really see a need, that guy, you know that guy, Joe. They have to pony up, and Indiana's not going to give up Turner or Sabonis for Drew Eubanks, Keita Bates-Diop, and some Austin Spur, that is likely not going to ever see a San Antonio uniform. So that just comes with the territory. You're going to have to pay up to get something.
Now let me throw out another name.
The trade machine is fun,
you guys.
It's just ain't going to work.
Yeah, I heard this, and I don't know how far-fetched it is, and I'm not even sure what all the players would be, but Buddy Hield was another name that I heard might fit here in San Antonio. What do you guys think of that?
I don't know about – I mean, he's a great three-point shooter, really great three-point shooter. I just think that the guard position here is,
Yeah.
It would involve a trade for a guard.
Absolutely.
And the Kings would want picks, and the Spurs, I don't know that it makes sense to, push your chips into the table for a guy like that who, has a really elite. I mean, he is one of the elite shooters in the NBA. But I think there's a higher likelihood that he'll wind up on the Lakers somehow for Talen Horton-Tucker and Kyle Kuzma, even though he's not on the team anymore. Jeff, I know you got to get going. You still
just real quick on the situation. I think the Spurs, as far as addressing their shooting, I think that still can be addressed in free agency. I don't think you have to swing for the fences like a Buddy Hield, but it's just the big man. I think if I had to triage this, just the big man to me is just the absolute need, because after Jakob, it's such a drop off. Yeah. Such a no knock on Drew and Jock. It's just you need something better, and so that's where Miles Turner comes be. But yeah, thank you again, Tom, for having me on the Big Fun. Please go to kens5.com/Spurs right now. We're covering it all there from the Spurs, from the most ridiculous thing you'll ever find, like Funko Pops and Spurs, to some serious one-on-one interviews like Joe Wieskamp. Joe, do you know Joe Wieskamp, the other Spurs draft pick, is actually lighting it up in Austin right now?
He is.
Nobody's talking about it except for us at kens5.com/Spurs. There are plenty of articles with Joe Wieskamp there, one-on-ones with him.
We all get the same 24 hours in the day, but I'm convinced that Jeff finds another 45 minutes somewhere, because that guy all over the place for us. Jeff, always good to see you, my friend.
While we were starting the show, when you were doing the test, the mic check with me, my back was to you because I was submitting another article right now. So, yeah, that's how dedicated we are
don't
at
stop.
kens5.com.
Greg Matthews has got a big smile on his face right now. I promise you.
We can tell behind the mask.
He should tell you the text I sent him during the day. I always give him a warning. It's like, heads up right now, this is coming your way, so be ready for it, Greg.
My wonderful boss, Greg Matthews, is here, and Greg, if you could you switch it to just me and Joe here?
Oh, look at that!
Yeah, get out of here, Jeff.
See you, Jeff,
buddy. All right, Joe. I'm glad we've gotten to this point in the program because it's time for us to talk about something that we did talk about 2 days ago, and I'm dreadfully sorry about what happened to that recording. We can't all be Jackson Floyd, okay, Jackson? I miss you. Come back. But tanking, you've been very vocal about this on Twitter with the fine people of Spurs Twitter, who I love very much. Spurs Mafia, shout out.
Love them too.
But anytime something bad happens with this team, that we came into the season knowing what the score was.
Sure.
It's like either gas up the tank or this decision that Coach Pop made is stealth tanking. You reject both of these ideas in whole cloth. Tell me why.
First of all, I've been around Greg Popovich for, 20 plus years. And Papa, he wants to win. He's not a guy that is going to say, hey, we're going to just win 20 games, guys. And once we win 20 games, then we're going to call it a day and we're going to lose the rest. We're going to tank so we can get more chances at the ping pong balls in the draft lottery. Number one, even with all those ping pong balls, that doesn't guarantee you the number one pick in the draft. Now, maybe you get number two, okay, and maybe there's a good player there. But, Tom, you may know the college talent, and I'm convinced of it, better than I do. And I know there's a guy you're high on there. But who are you tanking for? I mean, honestly, who are you tanking for?
I think the answer this year, there's an easier, there's more of a motivation to tank, I think, because it's not like in years past where it was very like, there's one clear-cut top prospect and the rest is kind of a crapshoot. This year, really the top 5, top 10 picks are going to be pretty strong. And the top end of that, I mean, Paolo Banchero at Duke is doing things right now that I think he could do at an NBA level and, bend defenses, and he's a two-way player at a position of need for the Spurs, right? And when you look at what this Spurs team needs, right? Like because they look like they're figuring it out. They look like they're getting close to, playing the way that they need to play to compete. But there, as we all know, there's a difference between competing in games and competing for a championship. And, the line around this Spurs team is like they got a lot of really good pieces, but they need a guy that's going to come in and be the straw that stirs the drink. So, if you're really high on Banchero, he's that guy. Chet Holmgren at Gonzaga, 7-foot-tall beanpole, but he's a guard. The way he moves. And I'm not a huge college guy. Like, hand up, I don't watch a ton of college football or college basketball, and when I do, it's when we're getting to draft time. I usually don't try to think too much about this stuff before I have a good idea of where the Spurs are going to be picking.
Which is why you shouldn't think about it now either, because the Spurs aren't tanking. How do you go in that locker room every day and tell a DeJounte Murray, who is playing his butt off right now, we don't really want to try to win? You don't do that. There's no way, because you don't do that. You don't do that to Kelvin Johnson or Devin Vassell or Derek White or Jakob Poeltl, because these guys, when they go out on the floor every night, tonight against the Denver Nuggets or whoever's on the floor with it, they're not thinking about losing that ball game, nor do they want to be told, you have to lose this ball game, so we've got a chance at this guy at Duke. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my mind. Tanking, the Spurs are not tanking. They're not tanking. They're not going to tank. So please get it out of your mind. It's just not going to happen.
I agree that they would never – I can never picture Greg Popovich coming into the locker room and saying, all right, boys, let's just take it easy tonight. Obviously, that'll never happen. The whole stealth tank thing is, why is Drew Eubanks getting so minutes? Pop must really want those picks, but not want to,
right.
say that.
Yeah.
And I'm not really buying that either, because we know the way that Greg Popovich likes to manage when a starter is out. He'll take somebody off the deeper end of the bench so that the rotation can be fairly intact. The Thad Young thing, they're obviously trying to showcase him while keeping him healthy, for potential trades. But yeah, I don't think that Greg Popovich ever wants to lose a ball game. I think that he's more comfortable this year making decisions that may not look like they'll directly impact winning, because development is the key. Right, and so when he's going out and putting out some of these lineups where it's Trey Jones, Bryn Forbes, what's going on here, and then that lineup winds up providing a spark, but the little buttons that he's pushing, he's definitely doing the big picture coaching thing this year, and that big picture doesn't include losing games on purpose. Certainly not right now.
Absolutely not, Tom. And I hate to break this to all you guys, especially younger Spurs fans. Pop's been doing this his entire career. This is nothing new. This is nothing new. I mean, what Pop is doing and playing people, 20 years ago, I'm scratching my head going, why is this guy getting playing time? And nobody was saying Pop was tanking then. It baffles me how people all of a sudden go to this tanking thing. It seems to be the word of the day in the NBA or any professional sport where, well, we're not going to win a championship, so we might as well tank and get better.
I think
it just doesn't work that way.
That binary of you're either competing for a title or you better be as bad as possible
Yeah.
so that you could one day compete for a title, I think it's reductive, really, because you have a bunch of teams in the NBA who probably won't win a title this year.
You're going to have all of them except one.
Yeah, you got 29 teams
Right.
that won't win a title
Exactly.
this year. But I mean, outside of the Magic and the Thunder and the Rockets, they can all be pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And so,
Even the Rockets have been on a roll lately.
And they got some young players
Yeah.
where watching them, it's like, oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
I think it was the Magic and the Thunder, and Adam Silver was at the game. And somebody said, this takes tremendous commitment to the job. The Thunder lost by what, 75?
Yes.
Yeah. I can't imagine a Greg Popovich coach team, coming out like that. But in that game, you got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander out. Mm-hmm. You got rookie Josh Giddey, who's been tremendous for them, out. And you've got a team that is full of, scraping the bottom of the barrel of NBA players. I was not surprised that Oklahoma City played that poorly, but I was kind of surprised that a Grizzlies team with no Ja just kept their foot on the gas until it was like stop the fight. They're already come on. I don't know if they're going to get a call from the league office about that, but
well, I hope not, because it's professional sports, for goodness sake. So
yeah. It was.
if you don't want to get beat by 70, then do something about it, right?
Yeah, and they could not. But that kind of leads me into something that you've referenced several times here, that you're old, and you've been covering this team for a minute.
Yes. Both of those things are true. Yes.
Some Spurs historians would tell you, hey, look, there's one guy who's primarily responsible for this team having 5 championship rings.
Right.
And the Spurs wouldn't have been able to draft him unless they lost 75% of their games that one year.
True.
So, in about a couple minutes here, if you could give us the history of that as you saw it, because I was watching Barney at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was watching this whole thing play out, right? And the head coach at that time was Bob Hill. Greg Popovich was actually the general manager of this team. Yeah. David Robinson goes down early. I think the 6th game of the ball game, he's out for the season. He's done. Pop hated Bob Hill's coaching style. He just didn't like it at all. Bob Hill was more of an offensive guy, and as we know, Pop is a defensive guy. So Pop fires Bob Hill, takes over as the head coach, which, was kind of a crazy thing back then.
Can you imagine that happening today?
Yeah. Well, it happened to the Houston Texans, and kind of, right? The GM, and that's a whole nother story for a whole nother podcast. But that's what happened, and the Spurs really just didn't. You talk about the straw that makes the drink stir. I think you said
straw
something.
That stirs
the
drink.
That's the
Shout
one.
Out Reggie Jackson.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Well, David Robinson was that.
Yeah.
Right, and so the Spurs just really didn't know what to do, and they had no rudder at that time. Pop comes in. They don't win many ball games, and they get a bunch of ping pong balls. But I don't think they had the most, if I recall, back then.
No,
I think the Boston Celtics had it, right? So the Spurs get lucky. The ball comes in because everybody was taking Tim Duncan with that number 1 pick. That he could have just as easily gone to Boston with that pick. And so
another thing that's hard to picture in today's NBA is a 21-year-old top pick.
Yeah.
Who graduated college.
Yeah, exactly.
It
doesn't happen.
The game has changed a little bit, but I think that one thing that hasn't changed is that we probably wouldn't see a tanking Spurs team unless there was a, knock on every piece of wood in the building, bad injury to a guy like DeJounte Murray, who has been absolutely crucial. Mm-hmm. I mean, without him, things would be pretty grim for the Spurs, and I think unavoidably so.
Sure.
So, if something like that happened, then the tank would just be natural. That's just losing a bunch of games. But even if that was happening, I don't think, if they went into the last game of the season and it was like, all right, if we lose this game, we'll get more ping pong balls, then you might see Pop throw out that lineup with Eubanks and Trey Jones and Bryn Forbes, to start the game. But,
sure.
This team, I think, has proven through, especially the last, 6 games here, that they're better than their record. They're the kind of team that can compete. So
they've got so much talent, Tom.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys that are on that floor are young, but they're extremely talented. And I'm going to tell you, you brought up DeJounte Murray. I honestly believe if Murray does not have the type of season he's having right now, then he's no longer a Spur. I think they had finally exhausted. I mean, they've been waiting on this DeJounte Murray, for 5 years, expecting this. And I honestly believe that Pop made the moves that he moved, getting rid of DeMar, Rudy Gay, all the vets, and went. Maybe he didn't go to him, but it was implied that, okay, this is your team, and this has got to happen. You've got to come through. And I honestly believe that if DeJounte Murray comes in and has a mediocre season this year, he wouldn't be a Spur any longer. I truly believe that. So I think this was his make-or-break year. And he's finally getting the opportunity to be the man, be the leader of this team, and he's making the most of it. And that's a great thing.
We've got to wrap it up here in a second. Just your quick thoughts tonight. Spurs taking on Denver. Denver playing on the second night of a back-to-back, and they went to overtime last night.
Yeah.
They're a banged-up team. Seems like everybody's plan is make somebody other than Jokic beat us, and then Jokic beats them.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts going into this game quickly?
Well, I mean, the Spurs are going to do that too, right? I mean, and he's been a Spur killer. Every time it seems like he sees a Spurs uniform, he just elevates his game. And this is an interesting couple of games because they play Denver back-to-back, right? It's not one night after the next, but it is a 2-game series, if you will. So Jokic is the guy. I mean, he's the guy. He just seems to find a way to give the Spurs trouble. And
I mean, one of the top 5 players in the league,
no question,
for the last couple of years at this point. I mean, people still sleeping on him, for like aesthetic reasons, but like he's one of the most skilled players in the league today.
I think he's been as clutch as anybody.
Yeah.
Over the past 2, 3, 4 years. He's
clutch. Tremendous.
Yeah.
Spurs are going to be keeping their fingers crossed that he's tired tonight.
Yeah.
Hopefully we see Devin Vassell, who's probable tonight, play, potentially in the starting lineup. But that's it for this episode of the Big Fun Pod. Spurs fans, thank you so much for listening. This is from Ken's 5, the official TV station of the San Antonio Spurs. That's Joe Reinagel. Jeff Garcia was here with us earlier. My name's Tom Petrini, and we'll see you next time. Go Spurs, go.
Yes.